want to bring in our guest for the 4 o'clock hour. She's a friend of mine. She's a coach. She's a motivational speaker. She's just a great leader. She's an author as well. Kelly Accetta joining me in the studio. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me back.
Have you ever been through a hurricane?
Thank God, no. I'm from California, so we had earthquakes. that was plenty.
Yeah. What was the strongest earthquake you ever went through?
Oh, it was 1972, I believe, or 1970, and it was up there. It was one of the strongest ones. A hospital fell, freeways fell. So it was a bad one, and I think I was young. Let's just leave it at that.
No, you were young. You were young. You were very young if it was 1970.
Very young.
She's giving herself,
very young. But I still remember it. It was terrifying.
It's scary stuff, isn't it? I'll tell you what else is scary. The world's scary.
Yes.
The world is scary. It's a scary place. And we're in the studio. There's a couple top topics we're going to talk about today. First, if people are new to the show and they're like, who is Kelly Accetta? Who is this person? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a speaker and a coach, mainly for women, for about 20-plus years on 5 different continents, and mainly helping women with leadership development. But after, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years, I realized talking with women afterwards, we all were struggling with some of the same things that we kept doing and self-inflicted in our lives. Things like gossiping and mommy guilt and all these different things that we were putting into our own quote-unquote minefield. And so I decided to write the book, How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. And each chapter is specific to something that we as women do that trip us up.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, the last couple of days, because of the women's soccer team, gender equality pay has been in the news, and we can talk a little bit about that as well. And also just, I think women's role in society has changed. Like you said, mommy guilt earlier. And it seems like now if women want to take time off to do the most important role I think they could ever do is raise a child, it's almost like that's shamed a little bit. It's looked down on.
It is. And also there's a penalty, and we're out of the workforce for 5 to 7 years and, really take that time to raise our children in their infancy, in their most vulnerable state. Mm-hmm. We get back, and even if we're still competitive, we've still lost a lot in those wages and in that ability to move up in a company.
I look at my wife, and when I first met her, she was a mortgage, kind of a bankruptcy attorney, and so she handled a lot of high-profile cases, and then she stepped out of the realm of the legal world and didn't work for 15, 16 years. And to get back into that after being away was really, really tough. And so I'm with you on that. It's really and she wasn't. She just didn't have the credibility anymore as someone in her field. So that's tough. And I would imagine a lot of women are dealing with that.
Yes, it is. And sometimes we can stay relevant. There's things we can do. We can take courses, but a lot of jobs, it's just literally, if you're not there, you're not recognized, you're not promoted, and. You can't necessarily blame a company. They can't hold a place for you for a decade. That's impossible.
Let's look at politics for a second. There's a lot of women in this Democratic nominee race. And it was funny. If you look back maybe 20 years ago, I really can't name one woman that even ran for on any kind of party's ticket. Have women come
Geraldine
along?
Ferrero.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Well done.
But well done. 10 points for you, Luke. But has women's come a long way?
Yes.
To just kind of standing up in the political world and being considered. I mean, last election with Hillary Clinton.
Yes, absolutely. And that it's really important for women nationwide in a lot of different ways. First of all, our daughters seeing the ability to lead and govern. That's a fantastic thing. But also, we could be doing better with providing different services that can really help women stay in their careers and add the income to the family that a lot of time is really necessary. A lot of families need a second income.
Two-income family is important.
Yeah, and when, there's childcare is so expensive and you don't know what you're getting. You don't know who's there. There's certain things that I think having a lot of women in our government we'll start seeing a lot of things start working better. We already spend the money. It's already, there's so many programs that we already have, but they just don't function like they should. And I think that'll help.
And you've got a seminar coming up, a workshop. Let's talk about that real quick.
I do. Saturday, we have the workshop, and it starts at 9 and goes till 5. And I have been speaking on this for so long, but all of the sudden, all this research has come out of how important it is for women to spend time with other women and just blow off steam. I think it was twice a week. They
what
said,
do you guys do to blow off
right,
steam? Let's go bowling. Let's go to some golf balls at Top Golf.
Just a glass of wine and talking is all we need. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was funny because they've done all this research, and I'm like, they could have just followed any female around. You know, we are so overstressed, and we're just constantly pouring into our families, our jobs, our friends. We never take any time for ourselves. And when we become an empty vessel because we've poured everything out into other people, we are not the women we want to be. Mm-hmm. I know I border on a very catty,
right?
snotty, when I'm at my wit's end. And so that's what this workshop's about. It's really to share with women how to take care of themselves so that they can keep taking care of the people they care about the best they possibly can. And the way that we do that is get rid of these landmines, things like comparison, looking on social media or gossip magazine.
Well, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Social media is probably, and we had somebody just a couple of days ago, Ashley Williams, ex-Mavs dancer, influencer, was talking about how social media is horrible sometimes for women because she's comparing her body shape, how busy she is during the day. Is she working as much as this person is working? Yeah. You know, all that stuff. So let's talk about that.
It really is. And especially for millennials, it's really having an impact. And there's no way we are all gifted with certain abilities. So you can't look at all of these different people and say, I want to be gifted with that. It's impossible.
Yeah.
We're great at what we're great at. And so some people look at us and they, compare themselves and find themselves feeling less than. And what I share with women, and this is something that we would go through on Saturdays, what in your life, what are you subjecting yourself that makes you feel less than? And get it out of your life. If it's social media, go on a social media fast for 30 days.
That's what she did.
Yeah,
and she felt really good. The book is called How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. You can find it on Amazon. I'm on Amazon right now. You can pick it up right now. You can go to your website as well, which is
truth.coach.
Truth.coach. Truth.coach. All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Kelly Accetta. We're so glad you're in here. A few minutes, we'll come right back. You listen to 620 AM KEXB, your expert in business.
These are the most exciting iPads we've ever seen.
Experts in business. 620 AM KEXB.
Plano northbound 75 Central at Spring Creek Park.
All right, welcome back. 419. We were talking that you like that, huh?
That was the perfect part to push it up a little bit.
Listen up.
I know my motley crew. Kelly Accetta is in the studio, author, life coach, motivational speaker. She has a workshop coming up this Saturday at the at Legacy West area.
Yes, Marriott. Shops at Legacy, not Legacy West.
There you go. Oh, that's right. It's on the other side.
We can't forget about the east side.
I know. Don't forget about the east side.
The original.
The original.
That's true. The original. Yeah,
yes.
Before developers went crazy over there. Okay, so what can people get real quickly? What will they take away from this workshop?
They're going to learn a lot of strategies so that they can stop tripping themselves up and having a miserable day, self-inflicted miserable day. Life's already hard enough with everything going on in the political climate, things going on at work, things going on at your kid's school. There are so many things that we women do that really make our day worse, and we can control them. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share strategies, so they can walk out of there with just a whole plan on how to not rob their life of joy.
I love it. How can people register for this, by the way?
On my website, truth.coach.
Truth.coach. All right, I'm going to play a little soundbite from, is it Megan? What do we agree on here on pronunciation of her last name?
Rapinoe.
Mm-hmm. This is Megan Rapinoe earlier today.
You're more than someone who tunes in every 4 years. You're someone who walks these streets every single day. You interact with your community every single day. How do you make your community better? How do you make the people around you better? Your family, your closest friends.
And, of course, this was their kind of ticker tape parade that they had in New York City, I believe. But the main conversation in all of this has been equal pay. Mm-hmm. That there's a gender gap. There's a wage gap between what men make on the soccer team and what women make on the soccer team. And you kind of had a great take on this. I like that.
And she's got the team has a legitimate beef for what's going on here in the United States because they do bring in more revenue. They bring in almost $51 million, and the men's team only brings in around $49 million. So for them to not have the same quality training facilities, the same travel equality, the guys are in first class, they're not.
Are the women bunking up with each other in the room, or
all of the standards for the men are first class and the women aren't. So they have a legitimate beef. They're bringing in more revenue. But when they start bringing in the World Cup into the conversation, they're really muddying the waters for what their cause is. And if you look at it, it's just in the United States, we're blessed that we have things like Title IX that have really poured into women and women's athletics over the last few decades. So we can't look at the world stage does not have the same amount of focus on women's sports as we do here in the United States. So, the men's World Cup pulls in $6 billion of revenue, $6 billion, and the women's World Cup only pulls in $200 million.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. It's a huge disparity.
So we're the only country really paying attention to Women's World Cup, it seems like? Or
I can't speak for every country, but again, we just really, just a few decades ago, all the money for public school sports went to the boys' teams, so I can't imagine it was much different in all the other countries worldwide. So, it's the disparity is so vast. We can't expect the women to be paid the same thing as the men because there's just not the money isn't there. There's no way to pay 100% of that $200 million and even get close to what the men make. The men get to share about $400 million in profits at the World Cup, and the women get to share about $30 million. Now, if you look at it, those proportionate numbers, the men are making about 9% of the gate, and the women are making about 13% of the gate.
Are the men playing more games than the women?
They are playing more games sometimes. I'm not a real big soccer fan, but the Wall Street Journal did a fantastic breakdown of all the numbers and all the different aspects. But the bottom line is what is brought in. There's only so much that when you bring it in to pay it out. There's just as a woman, and I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of grief from my feminist ladies out there, which I have an issue with because as a feminist, you should allow women to have their own opinion and not just yours.
Oh,
so,
preach.
And that's hard for some of my feminist sisters out there. I just believe if we really want to have equality in sports pay, then we as women need to start supporting women's sports. Let's really be honest. How many women out there listening, call in. How many women do you have season tickets to the WNBA or season tickets to women's soccer? If we as women want sports to be paid equal, we need to step up and start supporting advertisers, demanding our TV cable companies show those sports, writing letters, and making sure that those are viewable on our devices. So we have some responsibility in this as women.
Kelly Accetta is our guest in the studio. We are talking about gender equality in terms of pay. I'm with you on that. I watch women's tennis because it's a little slower. It's a little on Wimbledon. It's a little
people
easier.
love women's tennis.
I love women's tennis. Honestly, I really do. Okay, let's take this conversation to the corporate level. Okay, you got two salespeople. You get company XYZ. They hire salespeople. Same qualifications. Is the guy making more than the woman? Is that proven to be true?
It absolutely is. And, I hate to say even in this day and age, there's inequality. And I, as a salesperson, that's why I always worked on commission because even back 2 decades ago, it was ridiculous. And, there was just some weird machismo thing up in, the higher ups that women were not as valuable. Now, today, it's not that way. Today, there's a lot more respect and regard for women and what they bring to the table.
Because I would say this, if that is 2,000% true, why doesn't a company just hire nothing but women if I can pay you less? I'm saving my labor.
That's a great point.
I mean, if I'm historically paying you less, then the hell with the guys. I'll just stack it with women.
Well, if you look at the companies that are paying women less, then it speaks volumes about the leadership not having faith in women to be able to do the job.
Yeah.
And so that's why they hire the men. So, again, and I've dealt with this. I've coached women through this. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. A lot of women don't want to hear this. But ladies, men ask for raises 6 times more than we do.
Good point.
And if we're not going to stand up and ask, not demand, but ask for what we're worth, then how do we expect to ever get paid what we're worth? And in this economy, if they're not going to pay you what you're worth and pay you equally to somebody doing the exact same job, go find another place to work. There are so many companies out there desperate for talent.
I agree. We've done stories on this show about that, about how men are much more aggressive to go out for a raise than a woman is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was coaching somebody just recently, and I said, you need to go ask for a raise. You haven't asked for a raise in X amount of, almost a year and a half. And she said, well, I just don't want to rock the boat. I don't want them to think I'm greedy.
You gotta rock
women
the boat
have this whole different conversation that goes on our head than men do.
Here's my take on this.
Okay.
I do think the women's soccer and the men's soccer should be paid equally. $0 a year. I don't like soccer. I don't want to see any more soccer.
Well, let's talk about this for a second. Wait a minute. I would love to. Maybe I'll look up in the break. If I win Wimbledon as a man, how much do I make? And if I win Wimbledon as a woman, how much do I make? I'm real curious to see what that
would be a fantastic.
Because you play the same amount of rounds, right?
Yeah.
And I would almost say that some of the female matchups, draw a greater crowd than some of the men's, because women, you have the Coco girl who just got knocked out in the quarters, but you've got a little bit more of excitement on the women's bracket than you do the man's bracket. I'm going to look that up in the break. I'm real curious because, hey, you're next, Wimbledon. You're the next person to get put on the hot seat here. Kelly Accetta is our guest. For more information about her workshops, go to truth.coach.
Yes.
And get registered coming up this weekend. A few minutes, we'll come right back. Kelly Accetta is our guest in the studio. We are talking all kinds of stuff. You've got a nice workshop coming up this Saturday over at the Marriott Legacy, if I'm not mistaken. This exact place.
Shops at Legacy. Yes.
Shops at Legacy. Go to truth.coach for more information on that. All right, let's turn our attention to the entertainment world, if we will. Toy Story, just as a recent example of them kind of editing out a blooper scene in that movie that had to do with a casting couch. And, of course, the casting couch due to the Weinstein, all that
mess.
That's a great. I was going to use a different word, but I couldn't. That went on. Anyway, so that's even made its way into the conversation here.
Yeah, and obviously they didn't portray Woody, the beloved character, doing something inappropriate. It was Stinky Pete, the villain, was talking to the Barbies.
How come I'm not familiar with that?
Oh, it's so funny. And again, it's funny because
it sounds like the greatest scene ever. It sounds great.
He's talking to the Barbies as twins, and again, it's not like someone's going to look at that and say, "Oh, I should act like that." No, it's the bad guy who's obviously being a jerk and a scumbag.
Here we go. I got a little audio from Stinky Pete here.
My friend. Your choice, Woody. You can go to Japan together or in pieces.
I had to get Stinky Pete in there. I wasn't
Go to
sure who he
Japan
was.
together or in pieces.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on this?
So, again, it's not like they were portraying the hero of Toy Story doing something inappropriate. It was the bad guy who was being a scummy bad guy.
He kind of looks like Harvey Weinstein, too, by the way.
Yeah. Maybe somebody was writing that in for him. But the bottom line is we can't start sterilizing and homogenizing our history. That's where things can get really interesting. And again, things don't go straight after the history books. They start out with little things. And, look at the 1950s. They took out anything and everything, any violence, any sex, it didn't stop people from doing bad things and being bad people.
Yep.
It shut down the conversation.
Well, it's just like, this is me personally. We don't have a gun problem in this country. We have a people problem.
Yes.
We have a morality problem. We have a what's right and wrong problem.
Exactly.
So,
well, I'm sure, you guys remember, I wasn't born yet, but I'm sure you all remember, It wasn't too long ago when you had the moral majority, with Tipper Gore, to be fair, trying to get heavy metal off of MTV and trying to stop rap and all this. And now you have, who people primarily on the left who you would think would be against that.
They
now
embrace it.
Now totally for it. Let's ban books.
They use them for votes now.
Put trigger warnings on stuff, tear down statues, whatever it may be.
It's really interesting. The very people they went out to censor, they've now brought to them on the campaign trail.
Mm-hmm.
Because Michelle Obama, the Obamas did this. They got Jay-Z and Beyonce. I mean, they bring in the people that maybe have some questionable content out there, and they use them for votes. They politicize all that. So I'm with you on that.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, I personally, that could start a conversation. If a teenager's watching that movie and they say, Mom, that kind of is like, that's my coach. Like, that's how he makes me feel. That can open conversations. If we just stop, we don't want to see anything bad, so we start taking it out of everything. That's not smart either.
Yeah.
We've got to learn how to have conversations about things. And that it's one of the chapters in my book. It's the offendability landmine. And when you get offended, when I get offended, when any of us get offended by something, it's usually tied to something.
Okay. What's going to be offensive to you?
Well, because I was a victim of sexual assault and had to endure, the repercussions of that. When someone's inappropriate, like if they just touch me too low on the back, that offends me. It's my personal space.
And I love it. And I all due respect, I like the fact that's legitimate. That's very deep and personal to you.
But I also realize where it's coming from. And this is what I work on in my workshop. We've got to know where that kind of feeling comes from, because it's unfair to hold someone else accountable for something that happened way back in our past. I need to, if someone does that and they're too low on my back, I need to know and say to myself, okay, maybe they weren't aware. And instead of just throwing them under the bus or lopping off their head, I need to have a conversation and say, hey, if you're going to touch my back, you just got to keep that at a certain level, because that offends me if it,
I can respect her for saying that, because a lot of people might say, I'm triggered by, they could give me an example that just doesn't really mean anything, because I think we have a lot of soft people in this society. We have a lot of people that are dying to be offended. That's a legitimate personal offense to you, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. But all right, so these workshops that you do, you guys talk about stuff like this, right?
We talk about the hard stuff.
So the hard stuff. So what are some of the things that women say to you as far as what's offensive to them, or maybe something they're dealing with? It's sexual.
There is never going to be a list of all the things that offend a woman.
Is sexual abuse a high topic?
Unfortunately, it is.
Wow.
1 in 3 of us have experienced sexual assault.
Wow.
1 in 3 in some way or another. And, that, and men have to really understand that when we are insecure, or when we are offendable, or when we are doing all these landmines, I had to eradicate all of this garbage out of my own life. That's the only reason I could write the book. And men just have to understand, when most women that you run into have endured that, that's just going to trigger a lot of other landmines to explode.
Kelly Accetta is our guest in the studio. The book is called How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. You can check it out on Amazon, or really pretty much any bookstore, Barnes & Noble, that kind of stuff.
BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com.
They still sell books, Barnes & Noble, right?
Well, yes, and my book's not in their store, but it is on their website.
On the website.
And also on my website.
And, of course, you can go see her this weekend. And, of course, you do these workshops throughout the year, right?
Once a quarter.
Once a quarter.
Yes, women need to get out and have girl time and build a community, because and there was a study done again. They didn't need to do a study. They could have just followed another woman around.
Right.
But that women are doing at this point, if they're working a full-time job, they're doing 2 full-time jobs, and they did the numbers. About $162,000 should be what is being paid. So it's no wonder why women are just stressed out. They don't make time for themselves. They don't make time. Take an hour once a week and go do something that they enjoy.
What's your thoughts when you see some of these younger girls that don't have the real responsibilities of the world complain about life being so dadgum hard? I can only take.
I get up at noon every day,
and I take 2 Pilates classes. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but in general, don't you think sometimes you just want to just get them and go, get in the real world?
Yeah, I just really think, we're all built for different purposes, and some people, their purposes are not real.
Women are tough, though. Working women, moms are tough.
Yes, especially single working women.
Toughest women on the planet.
Yes.
Absolutely. You have no idea how much I respect that. We really don't. And hopefully, if you're listening right now, you maybe know somebody that said, hey, this might be a good workshop for you. Go check them out, truth.coach. And better yet, get the book, How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. You're on this show quite a bit. You've always got an open door because I love what you're talking about. Well, let's just see how this whole soccer thing plays out. It's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be the beginning of a lot of conversations about, gender equality, pay, and especially in the workplace. See, especially in the real world. The soccer, only so many people play World Cup soccer, all right?
Right.
So let's just get real here.
Yeah.
We're talking about everyday workers.
I'm already training for it.
What's that?
Brian, I'm already training for it. I told you this.
Which, by the way, did you tell me that the FC Dallas boys soccer 15-year-olds beat the U.S. women's soccer team?
Yeah, I believe 5-2.
I think it's just kind of funny about that. Not diminishing the
I'm not
quality.
saying anything at all.
Hey, we've got some good 15-year-olds if that's the case.
Hey, the women's team has been to the World Cup 4 times.
I know, they're dominating.
And the men haven't been there in how long?
Yeah.
Like I said, I enjoyed watching it because I will say this: there's some pretty good-looking women on the Swedish team. I was watching this the other night.
I thought you were about to say our team, but then you went right to Swedish team.
I got a couple girls I just started following on Instagram and Twitter, and I follow them now because a couple of them were very patriotic. A couple of them picked up the flag. Kelly O'Malley, I think is her name, picked up the flag and was like, when it was dropped on the ground, inadvertently. I don't think Megan purposely dropped the flag on the ground. I think they were doing a photo op. I think it was just like kicked to the side, posed for the photo op. And so the other girl picked it up, Kelly O'Malley. So I'll give Megan some credit there. I don't think she did that on purpose. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure
to
be here. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a picture after this. Like I said, go to the website, truth.coach. Truth.coach. A few minutes, we'll come right back.